Yo, what's going on, guys? How y'all doing? Hope you guys having a good day, good night. Let's go ahead and get everything started. So today it's going to be an interesting one. It's a very popular topic. I'm surprised there's not a lot of videos out there on it already. Maybe some people just don't really want to get it nerfed. I don't know. But a lot of people have been asking me, what offhands am I using? What offhand should I use? And yada, yada, yada. So we're going to be talking about that today. We're going to break it down. We're going to talk about which offhands are available, which offhands you should use in PvE, and which ones you should use in PvP, and where to go from there. Okay, so one of the things we're going to be using as a way to kind of see or compare the damage between different builds is this very awesome PvE damage calculator, which has made with a lot of different people who have been able to help create this damage calculator. So, back in the day when I released a lot of the hidden stats, that included a lot of information with, monsters in the game and their stats, and pretty much it led to a lot of us being able to see a lot of these stats in our items and being able to learn what these numbers mean and all of that good stuff. And then some really awesome big brain players in the BDO community were able to turn all of that information into basically all the spreadsheets that we have now. Obviously, Big and Shiny did a lot of tests and was able to accurately get some PvE damage stuff, PvE damage information out. And then some of these other players that pretty much just kind of took it a step further and got it even more accurate. So shout out to, obviously I already did a shout out to Big and Shiny, all of that good stuff. But then also shout out to Matt's Matt's hashtag 1064 for the damage formula. He was the one, I guess, able to get a lot more accurate. Shout out to SHS hashtag 3797. The sheet was put together by him and other players in the community, verified formula with. So they use Global Labs, which you can see damage numbers now to try to verify this formula to make sure a lot of this information works properly and is correct. So shout out to Alec or Asminic hashtag 011, who was able to test this stuff to make sure it was correct on Global Labs. And a lot of other people. I know there were other people that definitely helped with the sheet. I don't remember exactly who. And there were a few community discords that helped with it too. So also, basically they kind of tried to fact check it with some of the information that was released as well in December 2021. Some updated information on some of the monsters were released by Warflash and SHR I don't really want to pronounce that part wrong or that name wrong, so I'm just going to spell it out. But yeah, so, you can kind of use the sheet. It's going to be down below. You can put your own information in and see what your stats are and which builds would work better for you. Okay, so let's set up the sheet properly. Again, we're playing Megu, so that's 35 DP debuff. Because it's a 20 DP debuff on our right mouse button, which we always use, and then 15 DP debuff on the T2 add-on on that right mouse button. Okay, so we're going to use our SA gear for now, and then we're going to be going over to our KR gear. We're going to use our SA gear for now because that's more in line with what a newer returning player would have, and then we'll go with KR gear. So our baseline on SA gear is going to be a Tet Reformed level 4 Kutum. Reason why is because it's basically the first thing you get. It takes 1 or 2 weeks to get Reform level 4. Just go to Kutum a few times, and yeah. So we're going to do that. It's basically like a pin Kutum minus 1 accuracy and a lot cheaper. So yeah, so we're at 739 monster AP with that, right? So 739 species AP. That's gonna vary based off of where you're grinding and what your setup is. So we're gonna leave that at 0 for now. Species AP is like your species damage, like Sylvan damage, monster, monster, sorry. Sylvan damage, human damage, demi-human damage, things like that. We're gonna leave it at 0 because that's gonna be up in the air based off of what different players have. Our crit damage. Crit damage is normally base at 200%, right? And then on top of that, we have because we're using corrupt crystals, which almost everybody should. We're pretty much between corrupt crystals, having a Zarka, and things like that. You are now at 30, or I am now at 38% crit damage. So that's where we're going to put here to 38%. 100% crit rate because we're playing Megu. All of our main damaging skills have 100% crit rate. The ones that don't have like 70% give or take. And then we have add-ons and various things like that to get us up to 100% crit rate on those skills that we're using to do damage. Now, our back attack, down attack, our base rate is 150% in PvE. Back attack, down attack rate. So this is a big one. Obviously, depending, no matter what offhand you're going to use, you're pretty much going to be the same rate. I have 90% because more or less I am always trying to go for those and a majority of those grind spots. Okay, so that's the setup we have with our Kutum. Now let's look at a Nesser offhand. If you guys don't know, a Nesser offhand is an offhand you can get literally for free when you talk to an NPC and spend 50 contribution points to get. You can rent it out. All you have to do is to do the main story quest and the Valencia main story quest. And you have to have, obviously, positive karma for the set effects. What are the set effects? I actually didn't know there was set effects, but maybe they just mean item effects. I don't know. But you just need 50 contribution points and doing the main story quest, and you can receive the Nesser offhand, and you can rent it out. So Nesser offhand is like a Kutum. It's like a tri-Kutum, and it gives you 10% crit damage. So this is the first one we're going to look at. So now these stats are now at total monster AP is 728 instead of 739, but we're receiving 10% extra crit damage, right? Our back attack, down attack is still going to be 150. It's not extra special attack. It's just crit damage. Okay, so now that that's put in, as you look here, History of Ruins, funny enough, it shows you that you're doing 1.78% more damage on build 2. So you should use build 2. So let's look at some other spots. For those of you guys who don't know, with my current gear, I do like to grind Underground Gyfin a lot. I can make competitive money there, even with my gear being what it is on South America. And it's fun. If you guys ever play Terra, it feels like I'm basically just fighting BAMs all day. And those are just called big-ass monsters in Terra, and they're fun to do. So I enjoy it. But if you look here, technically the Kutum does better by like about 1%. So let's look at some of the other grind spots that a player around that gear normally would be at. So, right, so let's look at Sakraya Underwater Ruins out of the Abyssal. So that's an underwater version. If you look here, build 2 does a little bit more damage. So if I was at Sakraya with this gear, I would want to be on build 2. Right? Again, this is build 2 with the Nesser, 728 compared to the 739. So let's look at some other places. Let's say we decide to go from there to Orc Camp, right? Again, it's another spot, very popular spot. A lot of people like to go to around this gear. If you look here, now we're going back to the Kutum. Now the Kutum is better. So it really just depends on where you're grinding and what your gear is at and things like that. Obviously there's soft caps. If you're hitting soft caps, if you're not reaching soft caps, those are going to have a play in it as well. And there's different soft cap percentages. If you guys don't know about soft caps, basically each different grind spot has a point to where if you reach more AP than what's like the soft cap is, any additional AP above that soft cap is going to be like pretty much like reduced to a percentage of it in terms of effectiveness. So let's say you have a 5% soft cap. That's pretty much saying if I get above 856 AP, anything above that, so let's say I get an extra 100 AP above 856, that 100 AP is actually going to be reduced to 5% of that in terms of how effective it is. Right? So instead of 100 AP, it's like I had 5 AP extra. Yeah, that's kind of like how the soft caps work. There's a little bit more into detail on that, but we're going to use another video for that. What's another grind spot? Thornwood Forest. I love Thornwood Forest. I'm a very big enthusiast on the Thornwood Forest. It can be really good money, but it's just like Scry. It just depends on where your RNG is at, including Gratuga and a lot of other grind spots, just RNG, right? But if you look at Thornwood Forest, build 2 now does better. So it really depends on where you're grinding. So that's with a Nesser, right? But the cool thing about the Nesser versus Ultimate Kutum is that, with the Pin or the Tet Reformed Kutum, is that the Nesser is free. The Tet Kutum, I mean, you get a free Pin to Vala anyways, but then you just got to spend a little extra money to get it Reform level 4. It's very cheap to get it to Reform level 4. But if you don't want to, if you're too lazy, you can just get a Nesser, and for the most part, you'll be doing fine. It's like 1% max damage difference. 1 to 2% damage difference, not a big deal. Now let's look into Ultimate Offhand. An Ultimate AP Offhand. So let's look at this and let's see. With an ultimate AP offhand, there's Tet and Pin. We're gonna just assume it's at Pin for the most part. Actually, no. Let's look at Tet. Let's actually look at Tet. If we look at our gear, Tet and Pin is actually 701 to 705. Right? That's the only difference when it comes to specifically what we're looking at in terms of damage. But you're getting that 10% extra special attack. So we can remember 701, 705. We can plug both those numbers into C. So we're at, let's start at Underground Gyfin, because again, that's my favorite spot to grind. 739 to 70, we'll do 701 with the Tet first. Look at the Tet, the build 2 obviously does better, right? If we look at 705 with the Pin, oh, actually, sorry, we had to switch this. Switch to 160%, because it's 10% all special attack, so that's crit and back attack, down attack. So we go to 701. 701, build 2 does worse, right? Build 1 still does better. And let's go to 705. Oh, there we go. 701, 701 and 705. So Tet and Pin, ultimate AP offhand. Build 1 would still do better. The Kutum still does better. Now let's look at Sakraya, right? Because Sakraya Underground Ruins is a very popular spot. When we look at Sakraya Underground Ruins, a Tet offhand and a Pin ultimate AP offhand does better, right? At this current gear stages, right? We're gonna look at some other spots. Let's go to Orc Camp. Orc Camp, Tet and Pin, the Kutum does better than the ultimate AP offhand, right? So it goes back to wherever you're grinding, and depending on where your AP is, right? I guarantee you, if I was a little bit less AP and I wasn't reaching certain AP caps, then it might be a different story. But yeah, so it really just depends. That kind of just shows it there, right? I didn't go through every single grind spot in the game, but it's pretty obvious. And, you look and see it. It's changed based off like different grind spots. So it just depends where you want to grind. Here you can see the ultimate AP offhand does better at Thornwood Forest. Okay, so as you can see, basically when it comes to like new returning player gear, pretty much it's just going to be dependent on where you're going to grind, but the difference is not incredibly high. So it's not like it's like, oh my god, you need to get this, you're going to get making a lot of extra money. No, it's really not a huge difference. It's just going to be accessibility. Which one's easier to retain for you, and where you're going to grind, right? Obviously, a Nesser is 50 CP. Ultimate AP offhand can be anywhere between like about 1 to 3 bill, I believe. And then Tet Reformed Kutum, you get a free pin. You get a free Tet Kutum, right, from just making Pin to Gear as a seasonal character. Then you spend 2 weeks. It's like 2 weeks of turn-ins, or like pretty much 2 turn-ins, right? You only got to do turn-ins twice, I believe, to make a Reform level 4 Tet Kutum, and that just means you go to Kutum like 4 times. And yeah, it's not that hard, but it's gonna be up to you which one you want to choose. But there's not a huge difference between all 3 of them, at that gear, right? Okay, so let's jump over to our KR gear. Our KR gear is a little bit closer to what an in-game gear looks like. Obviously, it's not hard capped gear because I play on multiple regions and I'm comfortable with my PvE gears in Korea because I don't do a lot of crazy amount of PvE in Korea anymore. But yeah, so we're at 820 monster AP. So we have it set up. We have 240% crit damage, obviously 150% back attack, down attack. We're not getting any extra special attack damage right now. And let's compare it with a Nesser. Now, a Nesser offhand, right, is crit damage. So our monster AP is at 796. Now we have 10% extra crit damage. Everything else is the same. So you look at Hex Sanctuary, which is one of the most popular in-game grind spots for our gear. Build 1, which is with the Godyr, is still better. Let's look at something like Underground Gyfin. Still another popular grind spot. Build 1 is better. We're going to be going through, Sakraya. Some players still enjoy going to Sakraya. Build 1 is better. I don't think I'm going to find any spot that has Nesser better. But, there might be a spot here and there. Let's look at Thornwood Forest. That's one of my favorite grind spots in the game. Build 1 is still better. The difference, though, if you look at the difference in damage, it's very minimal. Hex Sanctuary Elvia is where that difference in damage is pretty high. But if you're someone who likes to grind orcs, for example, which I have friends that love grinding orcs, the damage is about like 5% less in it's about 5% less with Nesser. And, if you like to grind Sakraya, it's about literally less than 1% less. So it really depends on where you're grinding. And the thing is, though, obviously a dual Godyr is 15 billion silver, and a Nesser offhand is literally free, right? So you, I guess, should consider that. Take that into consideration. So now let's look at ultimate AP offhand. Ultimate AP offhand is where things get interesting. Let's set it up. So we have, again, 50% crit damage. Now we have 10% all special attack damage. Technically, I have 15% down attack, but that's because we have additional down attack in general. Like our duo Godyr has 5%, so it's fine. We're just literally just putting 10% extra damage, 10% extra special attack damage everywhere, right? Including crit damage. A monster AP is 781, so let's set this up for it. 781, but now our back attack down attack is also an extra 10%. Now keep in mind the back attack down rate. We're using this at 90% because for the most part, you're almost always going for that. That can change, but it shouldn't change. Like it should be the same amount no matter what offhand you're using. I don't think you're going to be changing how you're grinding with a different offhand. You should probably still do the same thing. You should still go for back attacks, should still go for down attacks, yada yada. So if we look at Sakraya with this, now the ultimate AP offhand is better. Again, this is a pin ultimate AP offhand because in-game gear, so no reason you should only use a Tet. So let's look at some other grind spots, right? Let's go to Hex Sanctuary Elvia. Hex Sanctuary Elvia, ultimate AP offense tech is not better at Hex Sanctuary, but that it might be due to our AP there, right? Now, let's say you're someone who is somehow, we're going to copy this really quick on the build. Let's say you're somebody who is, full pen Tungrads. Let's get you somewhere really, really high AP, right? Pen Distos. Pen here. Let's get your monster AP really high. Tungrad Belt. Pen D20. I don't really know if you can get much higher than that, right? 800 monster AP. 800 monster AP versus, if you get a dual Godyr at this gear, your monster AP is 849. Then, even then, the Godyr is gonna be better. In my opinion, I think it's because that soft cap is so high. If you're able to reach those soft caps with both builds, then that'd probably be where the ultimate AP would be better at Hex Sanctuary, but it's not, right? So let's keep going. Let's look at some other grind spots though. Let's look at Underground Gyfin, right? Another popular spot. Now when you look at Underground Gyfin, build 1 is still doing better than the ultimate AP offhand, right? Yeah, there's I don't think we can really argue that, right? It's still gonna be better. Let's look at a place like, say, Orc Camp. Orc Camp, build 1 is still going to be better. But now let's look at some of the other places. Let's look at the places that have 70% soft caps and you're reaching those soft caps, right? Thornwood Forest, now the ultimate AP offhand is better, right? As you can see here, it's showing you here. Let's look at a place like, say, Sakraya, Underwater Ruins. The ultimate AP offhand is going to be better. Using my gear in Korea and South America, which is like 2 different ends of the spectrum when it comes to gear, I kind of showed, basically it just depends on where you're grinding. There is no one right or wrong answer. So now let's jump into AP, or now let's jump into PvP. Now when it comes to PvP, offhands are really, like, there is no right or wrong answer either. It's really just going to be dependent on the stats that you want, right? You have fiery offhands with the Nodewars and Kutum. Both the fiery version gives you additional defensive stats. It gives you extra HP. It gives you extra stamina, HP, and also special attack evasion rate, right? Even on a Kutum, it's going to be the same thing, or a Godyr. Now, the difference, though, versus the ultimate AP offhand, right? An ultimate AP offhand now is going to give you, instead, the ultimate AP offhand is going to give you additional special attack extra damage. So basically, instead of when you reform the Nodewars and Kutum, you're getting extra defensive stats, whereas an ultimate AP offhand, you're not getting those defensive stats, you're getting additional offensive stats. So the big thing there is the trade-off, right? The other thing is Nuver is going to give you more gear score. Nuver and Kutum are both going to give you more gear score, technically. So if you're someone who likes to look at your APDP and be like, oh, I have 700 gear score, I have 750 gear score, toss on those Narc earrings, toss on those Ronos rings, toss on those Orkenrad belts, toss on like those other whatever accessory extra gives you extra gear score, and then toss on a Nuver or Kutum if you just want gear score, right? But if you want just more damage, an ultimate offhand might be the play when it comes to AP offense, right? Now we also have other offense when it comes to ultimate offense, right? You have ultimate evasion offense, you have ultimate accuracy offense, and things like that. Now the difference between those is going to be those are going to be more specific on who you're fighting, right? If you're fighting high evasion players, if you're in a region where 90% of the players you're fighting are evasion players, it might be worth using an ultimate AP offhand. The other alternative is just getting a bunch of accuracy accessories, but that's a lot more expensive, and sometimes the cheaper alternative is the easier one. But it's going to be up to you how you want to go about that and what works better for you in PvP. Now, with that being said, if you do Nodewars and Sieges, and you do not do gear capped Nodewars and Sieges, then that's where it's going to be up to you. But if you do gear capped Nodewars and Sieges, even tier 1s, beginners, intermediates, etc., special attack damage is not capped. So as long as you can reach the stats, right? As long as you can reach gear capped stats with an ultimate offhand, you should. There's no real debate behind it. I mean, technically you could be losing, the extra HP and stamina from a fiery Kutum maneuver, but honestly, in gear capped Nodewars and Sieges, even Sieges, 2 out of those 3 Sieges every week are capped. There's almost no reason not to use an ultimate AP offhand to do extra damage, Okay, so at the end of the day, it's really going to be up to you. Don't take my word for it. Type it in the damage calculator for your gear. Try them out yourself. If you're an in-game player, I definitely would recommend you to make multiple different offhands. Make an ultimate AP offhand, make an accuracy offhand, make an evasion offhand. Get an evasion build. Switch the builds up. Don't just run one build for everything. Because at the end of the day, especially if you're doing non-gear capped content, right? We're not talking about gear capped content players because that's another story. But in non-gear capped content, like there is no right or wrong answer. It's literally is a paper, rock, scissors kind of thing. So you should just try the different builds out for yourself. Don't take my word. Don't take any other content creator's word for it. Don't take your guildmate's word for it. Try it out yourself because it might work for you. It may not work. At the end of the day, if it doesn't work, it's like a 3 to 4 bill silver thing, and that's like literally maybe like 2 to 4 hours of grinding for an in-game player. So it's not a big like waste of money because it's still going to help you in some way, shape, or form. There's going to be somewhere where it's going to be worth using. So I would recommend it for a veteran player who has a lot of gear. As a newer player, again, for PvE purposes, you might want to use it just depending on where you want to grind. But, keep in mind you lose DP, so it might be harder to get certain grind spots, So as a newer player, I would say maybe hold off on getting it just yet. You have a free tech Kutum, you get a free Nesser offhand. Mess with those for a bit. Obviously, if you're doing Nodewars and Sieges and you're doing gear cap Nodewars and Sieges, then it's definitely worth even for a newer player. But if you're just PvEing and you're a newer returning player and you're around that 250, 270 AP area, it might be worth to just hold off, use that 2 to 4 billion silver to make other gains. And then when you have extra money left, when you're starting to make a decent amount of money, you have extra cash just in your auction house, yeah, sure, go ahead and buy it. But again, don't take my word for it. Try it out yourself. Use the PvE damage calculator. Put your own stats in and see how much extra damage you're going to be doing with your stats. So yeah, hope this helps you guys, and I'll see you guys later. Peace.